Margo, I spoke to your colleague Noel Brennan from the Save Cuisle Campaign and with Patricia Towie from the Huntington's Disease Association of Ireland last November about the Save Cuisle Campaign. Can you start off by giving our listeners, for those who don't know, a bit of a reminder into what happened in Cuisle in Roscommon, and then tell us about the latest news with the campaign, please?
Sure, I will, of course, Sharon. That's right. The Kushla Holiday Respite Centre was the national centre for people with disabilities in the whole of Ireland, run by IWA, the Irish Wheelchair Association. There was a shock announcement late last year, beginning of November, to say that within 4 weeks that would be closed. So that shock announcement then led to a large campaign, the Save Cuisle campaign, which was petitioned by over 11,000 petitioners. We had numerous marches. We ended up in the Dáil at the Joint Oireachtas Health Committee, where there was a unanimous vote for a stay of execution for 6 to 12 months until a solution could be found to secure Kushla and find an alternative solution. Unfortunately, that fell on deaf ears, sadly, and Kushla was closed by the end of November before Christmas, with the loss of 48 jobs in Roscommon, mostly part-time. So sadly, what we're campaigning for still, like, Kushla is now closed, sadly. There is no respite alternatives in the whole of Ireland for people, particularly with high care needs, for holiday respite. It doesn't exist in Ireland or the UK, for that matter, for people to go on holidays, for people with disabilities. What we're campaigning for is on behalf of, there's actually 20,000 IWA members, many of whom holidayed in Kushla, and many thousands more of all ages across the spectrum of disabilities, basically, that use Kushla. There were non-IWA members that are now left high and dry. So what we're wondering is why IWA members were not consulted about this major life-changing decision. Others found out through social media, through word of mouth. They were not consulted about this decision. We had a huge Facebook campaign, and we received hundreds of heartbreaking testimonials coming through about the impact of this loss on their life. Families said it provided peace of mind. So basically, what we're advocating now is still for an EGM. We went to the IWA headquarters again, calling for an EGM in December. We received a letter of receipt saying that we would get a response, and as of yet, no response has been forthcoming. What we want to know is basically why IWA never carried out a survey to ask what the people wanted before claiming that the closure of Kushla is what the people wanted, and a move away from Kushla to hotel settings. So we just, basically, we're hand delivering an 11-page letter tomorrow to the IWA headquarters to coincide with their AGM. It's questions compiled by IWA members themselves. We're representing over 200 IWA members that called for the EGM before Christmas. In the matter of 3 days, we got 200 signatures. So some received responses to say that the new alternative is hotel respite. There was no mention of the EGM. Other people didn't receive a response. Many people sent letters to the CEO, to the chairperson. They haven't received a response to date. We just feel like members are not being listened to. We feel that the decision to close Kushla was actually made. We received information recently through the Freedom of Information to state that the decision actually to close Kushla was made in late 2018, in December. This was after the Claddagh Court Holiday Respite Centre was closed in Kilkenny. So we want to know, why was this decision not announced until late 2019? Why was a marketing team set up especially to promote Kushla early 2019 with a huge investment put into that? why they didn't consult with their members, why they didn't consult with their IWA staff, or even the owners of the building, whom they had at least for another 6 years. They had a 30-year lease out on the building for very little rent. And they had a day centre as well, which they had to relocate and rent elsewhere. So we just want to know, why did IWA go through the whole of 2019 without presenting this information? Why didn't they seek additional funding from the government? The Department of Health stated that they only stated briefly that they were in any danger of closing if funding wasn't attained. Actually, in 2018, according to the Freedom of Information, a loan was attained for an additional funding of 490,000. We want to know then in late 2018 why that number doubled to 1.2 million. There's no explanation for that. And at no stage Dennis Naughton stated in the Oireachtas when IWA approached him and another minister, Mr. Finian McGrath, former Minister of Disability Issues, how come they weren't informed that Kushla was not in danger of closing if the funding was not found? We have a lot of questions to ask that remain unanswered. Basically, we feel that members have not been given a voice. They're being told that this is what the members want, when in actual fact it's evidence from the contrary that it's not what they wanted at all. You know, they receive huge funding from the government, 40 million plus every year, plus another 20 million in charity funds. A large amount of money was being put forward by the owners themselves towards the cost of electrical works, essential works in the building. They didn't accept that. The community were willing to save it. A lot of the equipment within the building itself was locally fundraised. And sadly, when the lease was handed back recently on the 22nd of May, the building was gutted by the IWA in early May during the middle of lockdown. And a lot of that equipment sold off, sadly, which leaves us with very little chance of finding alternative proposals now to open Kushla now that the building is gutted. Okay. We have, we have approached a number of investors at the moment, but at the moment it's not looking positive.
And it's not simply a question of getting money from the government, isn't it? Because I believe Kushla actually, not Kushla, but the Irish Wheelchair Association, the people in charge of the organisation, believe that what they're doing is the right thing to do, don't they?
Well, there was various different reasons given, Darren, and that's where our questions come in as well. The initial reason given was the electrical and fire safety issues, and they stated 1.2 million was needed. Then the local community got together, the owners got together, they said they were willing to do anything to save it. Then they changed their reason the following week, and they came out with the hotel respite breaks as an alternative to Kushla. So, why was the reason changed for the closure from a funding issue to a change in a respite model? And this plan did not appear in their strategic plan. It wasn't mentioned in any AGM, any meeting, no consultation again with members. It was due to start, unfortunately, on March, before the pandemic. We want to know, why they didn't consult with the members. We also want to know why they stated that the hotel respite breaks had been running successfully in Kilkenny, in the Hoban Hotel that has it has an accessibility award called Mobility Mojo Gold Standard Award, which is also the IWA board member Stephen Kluski's company. So we want to know, was there another agenda there? I suppose I'm not supposed to speculate, but it does seem like there was a conflict of interest. So according to members in Kilkenny as well, they closed a court holiday respite centre in 2018. And that in actual fact the Hoban Hotel only caters for those on a rota basis and only for those with low care needs. It doesn't actually form an alternative to the respite centre that they closed there for almost 200 members back in 2018. So only 3 hotels were contacted as an alternative to Kushla. As of the Joint Health Committee last year, no contracts were signed. At the moment with COVID, nothing is still running, obviously, but they're just showing us that they promised 1,700 overnight respite per year as an alternative to Kushla. But Kushla had a capacity of 10,000, 9.5 to 10,000 bed nights a year. It was a huge facility, 34 ensuite bedrooms. You know, it had a beauty therapy rooms, had a hairdressing salon, gym, jacuzzi. You know, it literally had everything on the ground. You know, a hotel is not going to replace any of that. So we want to know, it was done without a business plan in place, without any research, without an alternative. So we just want to know why was there no business plan or a projection of costs was made at this point. This decision for the hotel respite breaks, according to the Freedom of Information that we got recently, was only made 2 weeks before the announced closure. So there was no projection of costs.
Last November, when the news, I believe it was last November when the news came out about Kushla closing, I remember seeing the Fianna Fáil TD on television in the Dáil, and he's a senator now, Eugene Murphy, and he was saying that the communication he's had with the Irish Wheelchair Association has been appalling. Like it seems like to be an extremely frustrating situation dealing with them. Yeah.
There's just zero communication. Like even with the members, you know, whatever about the politicians, they're answerable to their members. You know. And I remember Eugene as well asking them in the Oireachtas, like, where did you come up with there was further reasons given in the Oireachtas late November as well about asbestos being found in a kitchen roof. Like it just, all of a sudden this was another reason. A report, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but even the owners haven't seen a report that asbestos exists in their own building. They have interested parties looking at the building at present. And they've never received an asbestos report. You know, and then another reason they were citing was unknown future costs, you know, so there's no evidence to say that there was, you know, the building was in need of works in the future, you know. Another reason that they were giving was that Divine Word Missionaries may want IWA to buy the entire campus. But the Divine Word Missionaries have stated clearly they don't want to sell. They're not in a position to sell. Another reason they cited was the hotel or the HSB policy was time to move on from congregated settings in reference to Kushla being a congregated residential setting. When Kushla is anything but or was anything but, you know. I have a quotation here from IWA. They stated, Kushla provides holidays to people with and without disabilities, enabling families and friends to holiday together. So Kushla was very much an integrated holiday hotel model, you know, that catered for community functions as well as international fishing events, conferences, beauty breaks, retreats, weddings. I actually myself got married there on the grounds of the beautiful Dunamon Castle. Yeah. So it was basically a utopia of integration. You know, it was anything but a congregated setting. But they just cited all of these different excuses. We just want the truth. We basically don't want these closures to continue. You know, there was Claddagh Court in 2018. The same excuse, the fire safety report, they were stating. We said Kushla have attained a fire report from a chief fire safety officer in Kilkenny stating that the fire report in Claddagh Court was actually up to date. So we have to question that.
And you have the Irish Wheelchair Association, you said, are having their AGM tomorrow, and you're having a demonstration at, aren't you?
We are. We have a delegate where we're not asking people at risk of COVID to come out. We're having a delegate from the campaign, mostly IWA members, to again hand deliver a request for an EGM for a meeting with the Save Cuisle Campaign, with the IWA members and the stakeholders, to answer these questions, because, you know, members continue to go unheard, continue to go ignored, and, it's just simply not good enough, We're organising a national protest actually for the 7th of October at the Dáil as well. We're calling on the HSE for quality respite. So at the moment, respite in Ireland is it depends on the postcode lottery system, and the choice of respite is very limited and it's also limited to nursing homes. It's completely inappropriate for many people. There can be waiting lists for over a year. Now that there's basically no respite holiday options in the whole of Ireland, and particularly for people with high care needs, they deserve better. I'll be giving you further details about our protest on October 7th at the Dáil. It's a national hybrid demonstration, so that means it's mostly online. We want people to stay at home to be safe, so it will be like something similar to a giant Zoom, which we will have further details about closer to the time.